Here's the problem. The problem is that no one can predict what the impact of a discovery is going to have up the road, whether it's going to be used for good or bad, and there's no way you can know. So how do you...
Absolutely. So, and this has it's true for both the positive and the negative consequences. Exactly. So this is why this relevance business is actually in a way bullshit, because you cannot forecast the most exciting technological developments.
How can we tell the importance of research that's getting proposed? Answer: you can't tell.
Exactly.
Nor should you tell. Nor do you know what. Hang on. Nor do you know what the so-called relevance might be down the road. And the relevance itself may not have been invented, because it might only become relevant after you have some other technologies in place.
Yes. No, I mean, that's true, of course. The inventors of the laser didn't think of all the applications for barcodes and
a solution in search of a problem.
And this raises the issue of delay between a proof of principle and becoming a practical, relevant part of technology. And that's typically 20 to 40 years. The laser, with the deep learning, is good.
Yes, and that's very simple, because certainly in our country we have all this business about trying to say what impact your works had. And the point is diffuse and it's long term. And you wouldn't want to give funds to the department where some great discovery was made 40 years ago. It's quite a different department.
It's true.
But going back to the question of this morning, I'd like to defend him a bit, because it's completely true that when the pure discovery is made, and we don't know the balance of good and bad, but when you get to a particular application, then of course it is analogous to the medical Hippocratic oath. I mean, do you make bioweapons? Do you make H-bombs and all that? And in that context, I'd have thought it is a real question. I mean, it's still a question of the extent to which the scientists should put their ethical views above the ethical views of the rest of the public, because they've got no special expertise or sensitivity, but they do have a special responsibility, in my view. And say, just like you have a responsibility for your kids, even if you can't control them.
There's anguish that some feel. I mean, I know people who really are concerned and worried about what their research is going to do and so forth.
Well, the Manhattan Project people are a good example.
So, but on the other hand, there's also another point of view, which is that some things are so sweet that they're going to happen anyway, and might as well do it. Right? They're just inevitable.
Yes, but that's a dangerous argument. But of course, the other point is that it's clear that people are trying to do new cinema conferences.
Oh yes, and especially with CRISPR, that happened.
Yes, but the point is that it's not clear they're any use at all, because at the time of the first cinema, there were just a few small academic groups doing this stuff, whereas now it's a global exercise in China, North Korea.
The cat's out of the bag.
With lots of commercial pressures as well. So my view is that enforcing any such regulations is as hopeless as the drug laws or the tax laws, which can't be enforced globally. We should try, but I think what scares me most is that we are not going to be able to prevent people by error or by design misusing all these technologies.
That's true.
That's my number one
But
fear.
I think it actually immunizes us from the criticism from the public that we're going into these things without having thought through the consequences.
I'm always, if someone says, what's the importance of this? What's the relevance of this? What's the use of this? My economist mind says, what does that mean? Use? Importance? Importance for what? Making better washing machines? Making the traffic flow a little bit better? If you went to Beethoven, he's just about to write some symphony, and say, what's the use of this? What's the importance of this economically? It's, well, okay, I can fill up a few more theatres, maybe, etc. But actually, the point I want to make is fundamental. So I'm not disagreeing with what you said. Of course, there should be relevance, and there's plenty of relevance in science. But the deepest point is that science exists, in my opinion, for science. Science exists, and I hate to bring all of this back to human beings. What's the use of the biosphere for humans? Do we carve humans go extinct, or, well, I think maybe that'd be better for animals, fewer of those would go extinct. But coming back to humans, we do have a sense of wonder, and we have a sense of elegance, and we have a sense of something just being, oh my God. It's more in your fields, because we can understand that visually, than say in your fields, Terry, that, you know, you show a picture of Pluto and I'm thinking,
yes,
oh my God.
Yeah, yes. But of course for the natural history and the
sure.
Amazon forest and all that,
Exactly.
I mean, that's the same. I wanted to say another piece of good news, which is that, of course, you can appreciate science without doing it, and that's possible through the media, etc. But in fact, more people can actually do science. It used to be that there were rather few sciences, like say botany, where amateurs could actually help the professionals. That now could be done in other fields. I mean, for instance, there was a thing called the Galaxy Zoo project, where 3 million galaxies were classified by amateurs and things like that. And just because their pattern recognition was better than could be done by a machine at the time. And in fact, some of the planets found by the Kepler project were found by individuals. You could download the time series of observations for one star, you know. And in fact, there was an algorithm which found most of the planets from the regular dips. But for instance, there's one very special system where planets orbiting a double star. That was found by amateurs because if you can imagine there's a double star planet going around it, then the dips aren't completely regular, they're more complicated. And it was an amateur that's looking at that who found it. We discovered an exciting new planet. And so that's an example of how the ability to access and download large data sets allows far more people to participate in genuine scientific discoveries.
Crowdsourcing. And I think the Galaxy Zoo, there was a discovery made by one of a woman who was looking at these galaxies says, this one doesn't fit into any of the categories.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think she's on the paper announcing a discovery.
Yes. Well, there's one now for a variable star, which is called Maddie's star, which is this woman Madeline found it, yeah.
But how long time will pass before AI takes over all of that?
Well, I mean, AI is clearly catching up, but I think it's possible to participate, and of course it's not just in fields like that. Another example which has been done was that they got amateurs to analyse 18th century ships' logs, which have climate data on the temperature of the ocean, which is useful. And lots of people, certainly in England, went through these ship's logs. And of course, some of them then got interested in the rest of the content of the log and became interested in naval history and the details of what happened to particular ships, etc. So that's just an example of the way in which the availability of huge amounts of data, written data and measurements, does allow people to participate and follow up their interest in a way that they never could.
So there's another example that comes from the example that you gave, which was curiosity and spirit. So Steve Squires, who was the head of that project, visited about half a year ago, and a brilliant talk about what they went through to get there, and the fact that it's basically like an $800 million program, and how do you justify that to the public? But a couple of things that he told me. He said that he had a real difficult decision to make at the very beginning about when to give out the data. Because they're collecting all this data every day, right? Every day they make decisions and they get back images. And the team wanted to hold on to it for a year or two so that they could mine it and publish the papers. And that's how academics work. But he felt that was too restrictive, and the fact is that the public had paid for this, and they should get the data as it comes out, the raw data. So he just made the decision. They weren't very happy, and so as soon as it comes in, it goes out into the internet. And what happened, he said, was really astonishing. He said that what happened was that there are a lot of people out there. See, to go from the raw data to something that you can actually look at requires a lot of pre-processing. You have to go through and get rid of the artifacts. You have to figure out how to normalize it. Just there's a huge amount of work that has to be done. And what happened is that they would download the raw data. He would go to sleep, and the next morning, somebody on the other side of the world would have done all that work for them. And so it's sped up by a factor, who knows? I mean, how would, because again, you're harnessing the interest and the eyeballs and the talent of the rest of the world, otherwise would have access to it. And rather than hoarding everything, under your, I think that the more data that gets out there, more people looking at it with more tools and techniques and analyzing it will make progress much more quickly.